Okay, good day to everybody, whoever is there. Till now, I think there are 103 viewers, and I suppose 1,300 approximately viewers have registered. They will be coming online as we go along. And also, it has been opened up in WhatsApp and Twitter, so I'm sure a lot of people will be coming and joining us. Today's session is on new medical device regulations, which I'll talk about with a little bit of medical devices that are actually used in COVID-19, which won't be much because the reasons I shall tell you as we go along. In the very beginning, let me tell you that CDSA, who are hosting this webinar, have been doing excellent work all these years. I have been associated with them, and they have been holding seminars and workshops all over the country on medical devices and clinical trials for startups and people who are interested in these things. I would like to thank them to bring this uh, as a webinar. Since we can't meet outside, this is the best possible way to interact with each other. And these are actually lockdown times, and therefore not normal times, in the sense that you all are sitting at home. Maybe you couldn't visit the saloon for a haircut, and of course, with the situation as it is, I am sitting at home with my laptop, with my home connection, so things are not the way it should be in a live stream. So anyway, we shall make best of it. There'll be a drawbacks in this one. I hope you will understand because of this webinar thing. There will be drawbacks. Now, I always like face-to-face interactions in which I can see your face, you can see my face, you can question me, I can answer you, I can question you, get your viewpoints. Uh, but it's not what we always aspire for that we get. Now, this particular webinar will go like this. I will start with the history of medical device regulations in India and how they're regulated through the years, followed by a brief talk on medical devices that are used for COVID-19. This won't take much of a time. Then I will take over question and answers that you have already sent me. I have them over here with me. I'll take them and I'll ask the relevant questions. Questions are duplicates, quite a number of them. So I'll club them together and try to answer them. Questions that require graded response, I mean a response which are case to case, I would request you to send them to CDSCO for proper response. I'll give you a generalized response on those questions so that you can further read and understand it better. Following this, because I'll tell you why. I have got around 138 questions. It's not a matter of joke. So even if take half a minute, it'll be 1 hour. So I hope we have some 5, 6, 10 minutes at the end when I'll open up the chat box and we can then talk about questions that you have in your mind at that point of time, and I'll be able to answer them as far as possible. Now, let's talk about medical devices. Medical devices, as you know, have recently been brought under the regulations. But was it always like this? I remember in early 80s when I joined CDSCO, there was no regulations of medical devices and only 3 or 4 medical devices were regulated, and they were related to family planning, that is copper T, tubal rings, condoms, etc. they were controlled as drugs because Indian regulations at that point of time did not have any separate regulations for medical devices. And following this, somewhere in 1989, we had included a few more devices, that is disposable hypodermic syringes, disposable hypodermic needles, disposable perfusion sets. These all came in 1989, possibly because, if my memory serves it right, these were used in universal immunization program of the country, and they required to be controlled. So they were brought under the Drug and Cosmetic Act. Again, in 2002, we included in vitro diagnostic devices for HIV, HBsAg, and HCV. This is again why they were included. They were included because at that point of time, HIV was prevalent and India started regulating blood banks in a huge way. Now, blood being a drug, they have to be controlled and checked and tested. And therefore, in vitro diagnostic devices were essential for testing them. And so, in 2002, these devices came into being. So far, so good. Now, we were controlling them under the Drug and Cosmetic Act. Somehow, it was okay. Quality products were going in the market. But something happened in 2005 which made the government realize that medical devices are an intrinsic part of healthcare system in the country, and therefore we need to actually control larger amount of medical devices in the country. And therefore there was an incident following which India, the government, notified 10 medical devices as drugs, and they were in 2002, they were declared as drugs. They were cardiac stents. You know, cardiac stents, they are implanted in the heart or the arteries for opening up the lumen. Drug-eluting stents, catheters, intraocular lenses, IV cannulae, bone cements, heart valves, scalp vents, and ophthalmic implements, internal prosthetic replacements. These were brought into the purview of the Drug and Cosmetics Act. Now, herein started the problem. Until in vitro diagnostic kits, we could manage them with actually under the Drug and Cosmetics Act. Somehow we did that. But after these items came into the Drugs Act, there was a problem from the regulator side as well as from the manufacturer side. These did not fit in as, if I may say, drugs in the stricter sense. Therefore, we had to do something, and that something was the birth of drafts of medical device regulations. These medical device regulations are not actually born out of one day's thought process or something like that, but they were actually brought in after actually many sittings of meetings of senior officers of the government, scientists, and officials to decide how to control medical devices as drugs. We had examples in front of us, like examples of Europe, USA, Japan, Southeast Asia for that matter, how they control medical devices. So, the reason actually why we went in for this is we must understand the difference between medical devices and drugs. You know how a drug acts? Drug acts by way of pharmacological action. When you introduce a drug in the human body, it interacts with the body biology physiologically and cures you or prevents you from getting disease. It always happens like that. I mean, drug you take from your mouth, it will be excreted to your kidney and urine. It happens. So it is not remaining in your human body for a long time. So it is a completely different ball game altogether. In case of medical devices, these actions are actually mechanical. They are supportive items which help in mitigation and um, prevention of disease. For instance, you have heard of orthopedic implant. Somebody breaks a bone and the doctor prescribes an implant in the bone, in the broken portion of the bone. The implant is fitted over here. Now, that implant will remain in his body as long as he lives. It doesn't go away anywhere. Similarly, any medical device you see, it remains in the human body. And all these medical devices that were notified later on were implantable medical devices, not all medical devices. They were all implantable, excepting, for instance, the IVDs of reagents which are used for blood testing. All of them were implantable medical devices. They remained in the human body, and all of them were classified as Class D device, that's C or D device, which are actually high risk devices. So we actually we started off with these sort of devices which actually go in the human body and puncture the human body and stay there for a long, long time. What happened after that? Before actually I tell you how are devices categorized in the new medical device regulations. I mean, if you see the definition of a medical device in the Drugs and Cosmetic Act, which is the mother of all definitions in healthcare controlling items which are done by CDSCO or the government in the states, the definitions control it. And the definition over there of medical device is scanty. It's not comprehensive medical device definition over there. It is actually mentioned in the definition of drugs. Now, if I may just read out the definition of drug where devices are included. Medical devices are treated as drugs under the definition of drugs, which is as follows in the Drugs Act. Now, remember, Drugs Act gives you definitions. Section 4B, drug includes all medicines for internal or external use of human beings or animals and all substances intended to be used for or in the diagnosis, treatment, mitigation, or prevention of any disease or disorder in human beings or animals, including preparations applied on human body for the purpose of repelling insects like mosquitoes. Now, here all medicines are there. Remember, medical device is not there. This is a perfect definition for drugs. What does 5B2 say? Such substances other than food intended to affect the structure or function of the human body or intended to be used for destruction of vermin or insects which cause disease in human beings, animals, as may be specified from time to time by the central government by notification in the official gazette. Such substances other than food intended to affect the structure or function of the human body. That phrase actually takes in the device portion over there. Part of it, of course, not full, but you can say that when something is changing the structure of human body, devices do that. Okay. Now the next section 7.3 says all substances intended for use as components as drug, including empty gelatin capsules. This is not device; this is a drug. Now the next section 4 says such devices intended for internal or external use in diagnosis, treatment, mitigation, or prevention of disease or disorder in human beings or animals, as may be specified from time to time by the central government by notification in the official gazette. This is the perfect section, part of that section, which actually describes medical devices. Such devices intended for internal or external use. In diagnosis, that is IVDs, treatment, you require medical device mitigation or prevention of disease or disorder in human beings, as may be specified from time to time by the central government. You may have noticed that in your studies or wherever you are, that medical devices are, all medical devices are not controlled. Only those are controlled which are actually notified. Now, there are medical devices which are there in the market but which are not notified. So, in those cases, those are uncontrolled medical devices. So, it says very clearly, it may be specified from time to time by central government by notification in the official gazette. So, you should have the official gazette notification to declare a device as a drug as a device. Now, the ideal definition, I'll just read it out to you, is from US FDA, which defines medical devices. You can see the same type of definition in, say, European definition or Australian definition. It says it's a very comprehensive, clear-cut definition, and which, of course, even if you don't have the US medical device definition applicable to India, you can rest assured that this is very clear and its intention is very clearly mentioned in the definition. Definition as per US FDA. A medical device is an instrument, apparatus, implement, machine, contrivance, implant, in vitro reagent or other similar related articles, including a component part as accessory which is recognized by the official national formulary or the United States Pharmacopoeia or any supplement to them. Okay. Now, intended for use in diagnosis of ease or other conditions or in the cure, mitigation, treatment or prevention of disease in man or other animals, or intended to affect the structure or any function of the human body other than animals. And this is very important. This is the operative portion of the definition, which does not achieve any of its primary intended purpose through chemical action. Remember, this is the basic definition which I mentioned earlier. A medical device does not achieve any of its primary intended purpose through chemical action. You can call it pharmacological action if you wish to, you can call it chemical action if you wish to. They remain and they can be removed also if required. There are cases where stents have been removed, where orthopedic implants have been removed, where cages have been removed. It's there. So they can remain in the human body as long as you want them, as long as that treating surgeon wants it to be there, because they don't dissolve in the human body to actually cause any therapeutic action. This is very important. So, when you're dealing with medical devices, you should know what you're dealing with. Now, medical devices are such a type of product which is available everywhere. More than 10,000 different types of medical devices available in the market. More than 10,000, and each type can have hundreds of variants. So, controlling these medical devices by way of Drug and Cosmetic Acts is simply impossible. You can't do it. Drug and Cosmetic Act actually controls drugs in a specified manner by testing its chemical structure or referring to the pharmacopoeia, physical structure. It's a lab-based actually testing. Medical device actually doesn't follow that. Plus, if I may add over here for your information, medical device can be custom made for a particular patient. That means out of the notified medical devices or general medical devices moving in the market, I can design a particular medical device to be used on a particular patient. In such a case, in such a scenario, what will you do? You don't have a standard testing protocol. You don't have a standard laboratory to test that. So, you cannot control them under the Drug and Cosmetics Act. You need to have a new act, rules. So let me just tell you what happened after that. It's a long story. So talking on laptop takes up a lot of energy here and there. Now, medical device regulations, after much deliberation and delay, was published. When? You must be knowing it already, but let me repeat. It was notified on 31st of January 2019. This is 20 going on. So last January, 17 rather, 31st January 2017, it was notified. However, it came into force from January 2018. A sufficient amount of time was given to the manufacturers to actually conform to the requirements of this new regulations. And this new regulations is a very, very comprehensive regulation. And it covers nearly everything that a medical device requires to be following, including your clinical trials and clinical evaluations, your manufacturing, testing, manpower requirement, everything is there. And the good part is that most of the portions that is there in this regulation is somehow it it is akin to the international regulations. I won't say exact copy of international regulation, because if you go to the US FDA regulations, they are much more comprehensive. Each device and each item may have number of regulations. But in this case, we also have covered quite considerably the medical device regulations in detail. And if you follow that, you will understand how to actually manufacture, test, import, develop, do research on medical devices. Uh, Now, some of you may be interested in carrying out clinical investigation of medical devices. This has been stated very clearly how to go about it. But in this case, you have to go back to the Drug and Cosmetic Rules also, Rules 1940. Because remember, Drug Act is the mother. Under the Drugs Act, you have Drug and Cosmetic Rules 1940 and the Medical Device Rules 2017. Both are part of the Mother Act. Now, the Act very clearly mentions new drugs, and the control of the new drugs is done as per the definition, as per the requirement mentioned in Schedule Y of the Drug and Cosmetic Rules 1940. So, if you want to develop a new medical device, lot of it you have to draw from the Schedule Y of the Drug and Cosmetic regulations. Like for instance, your ethics committee and investigator details and things like that. Schedule Y gives you very, very clear pathway, and you have to follow that along with the medical device regulations to actually develop a medical device which will be used on a day-to-day basis in the country. Now, I wish we could have a two-way conversation so that uh, I can actually go to those items which you are interested in. One thing that is to be mentioned over here, though I should have mentioned, I can mention that in the second part of my presentation on COVID, is that in case of an emergency, if there's a medical device requirement, that government has the power to waive off certain conditions, subject to the fact that these are imported from USA or Japan, which are clear cut, which have clear cut, what should I say, um, controls on these things, so they can be allowed. In case you have to develop a medical device in an urgent manner in the country, the government can allow abridged medical device testing in the country, which you must have seen that it's been going on in the country in the recent days. People have been carrying out a medical device trials here and there everywhere. So that is allowed. So now what happened was, I think it was recently last year, it must be last year, government has notified a huge number of medical devices under the regulations, a huge number. Now these regulations actually, where is it gone? Okay, here it is. These devices actually, what they do is, they have notified if some more devices, huge number of devices, which they have given a cutoff date of 1 to 2 years for their implementation. So they have been already said that from such and such date, these medical devices will come under the control. So get prepared for those medical device manufacturing or testing or doing research on those items. So what is the pathway for getting a license actually in a medical device? Do you know, or do you want to ask this question? The CDSCO actually has a web portal. It is known as Sugam portal. If you want to manufacture a medical device, you have to upload and apply in the portal along with the fees. Okay. Now, once you upload it over there, the online application submission is taken care of by CDSCO from then on. It goes to the nodal officer, then it goes to reviewing officer and goes down the line. And if there is a query that is required to be answered by you, it will go back to you online and you have to answer those queries. If your application does not conform to the requirements, the government can reject the application and inform you. In case everything goes through, you will again be informed online by the online portal of your license, and the license is issued online. You don't have to come to CDSCO to collect it also. Okay, now what's the time now? I think half an hour is over on this one. So can we dwell a bit on the COVID thing, medical devices requiring COVID? Of course, I'll switch over to medical devices now and then whenever I feel like, because this is my show, so you can't disturb me anywhere. You know, I've been asked to talk on medical devices used in COVID, that is the corona infection in the country. Do you think there's a medical device used in COVID-19? Just think over it. If you ask me, I'll say no. Because medical devices which are already there in the market are used in COVID, maybe in a larger number, maybe in an innovative manner, but they are already there in the market. So you don't require a new medical device for COVID, excepting of course for one of the items which you know very well is your testing kits. They are novel. They have to be directed and specific for corona. Otherwise, anything that is being used today are covered by the existing medical devices. What are they? The first thing that comes into mind is your face mask. Face mask can be normal face mask, which are surgical three-ply face masks, or they can be N95 respirators. Now, these type of face masks or respirators have their own standards. You just can't make it your home and sell it. NEO standards should be there, CFR 84, EN 142. These are all minimum requirements for N95 respirators. For surgical mask with three ply means doesn't mean it's a three ply, same type of ply in all the three material. I mean, all the three material plies have different properties in that. and these are controlled by EN 14683 type 2 ASTM. These are the standards required for even 3-ply masks. For general use at home, we sometimes make use of homemade cloth masks. Now, they are good enough if you're at home or just walking a few feet outside in your home, but they don't actually prevent, if I may dare to say that, prevent infection. Because you remember one thing, virus needs a carrier, and the carrier is usually your sputum or some larger particle, moist particle. Now, these particles are small enough to penetrate the normal homemade masks, which are made from various type of cloths, even washed saris and things like that. They simply don't stop. Okay, it's okay as a precautionary measure at home and nearby, you can use it. But for proper protection of yourself and to stop spreading of germs, you require certified masks, which are available, of course, everywhere. You can get them. Next is your PPE, personal protection equipment. Now, personal protection equipment, we have heard this PPE term. We are hearing this PPE term regularly for the last 3-4 months, at least 10 times a day in TV and newspaper and everywhere. Now, what is a PPE? Personal protection equipment is a set of medical devices which is worn by a person. He can be a healthcare worker, he can be a doctor, even at times he can be a patient, which prevents that person from getting infected by any viral particle which is in the air around him. So PPE per se is not one item, it's a set of items. And if you go to ISO 13688 2013, ISO 13688-2013, you will get a comprehensive detail of what a PPE should do. Whether it should be single piece, double piece, gown, it's all there. So you don't have to think, how should I design a PPE? Is my PPE conforming to the standards required or not? It's all there. You go there and find it out. Now, gowns, for instance, they are protective clothing. They are not actually very high-end stuff. They are protective clothing, and they are controlled by, again, 13688-2013. The same 13688-2013 has got gowns also. Okay. Now, another item which is regularly used by healthcare workers, and even sometimes even common people are using it daily, are gloves. What does a glove do? Glove, actually, you have got rubber gloves, you've got latex gloves, you have got powdered gloves, unpowdered gloves, various type of gloves. These gloves are actually items which actually prevent your hand from being contaminated by anything. And in today's case, since we're talking about COVID, maybe COVID-19. So it can prevent your hands from anything, any dirt, dust, any other virus, bacteria, everything. Now these gloves also have to have a standard. Okay. Now the glove standard is ISO 53561:2015. That is the standard for gloves. You will get various type of gloves over there, and their detailed standards mentioned over there. If you want to make gloves, which are of course, which supposed to be a what should I say, non-elite item as on date, but one of the most essential items today, you can make it. You can make latex gloves very easily with a small sort of investment, and using that ISO 5356 as your glove standard. Okay, now we have got face shields. You have face masks which are put on the face like that, and you have got face shields. What are face shields? Face shields are actually clear plastic coverings in front of the face, which has got two major benefits. One is it does not allow outside contamination to hit your face, your eyes. Remember, your eyes is also a potential entry point for virus into the body. So it protects your eyes. Secondly, and this is also very important, it prevents your fingers and hands from touching your face involuntarily. This is one of the reasons why face actually is a contaminating point from your fingers. I don't know if whether you see TV that much or not, but I saw a small program in TV the other day that there was an experiment carried out in Japan on how hand sanitation can minimize spread of virus. There was a small gathering around 15-20 people who were invited to have a buffet dinner together. Now, in the first experiment, what they did was one of the persons, maybe the host or whoever, his hand was splashed with a sort of dye which is invisible but can be seen by under ultraviolet light. And he was asked to go in and serve everybody and let everybody eat. After dinner was over, the lights were switched off, and it was noticed that each one of the persons in the room, including the utensils, the spoons, everything, was contaminated. But that's we since we can't see COVID with our naked eyes, we feel that it's not there. It's very much there. Now, this face shield actually prevents COVID from hitting your face and mouth. Okay. Then you've got goggles, their standards are there. And one of the most important is your ventilators. Ventilators is the talk of the town today. Now, this item was, never thought by us. It was in the back of our mind always, but never discussed in the open. But now it's ventilator all the way throughout. Now, ventilator has got a standard which is ISO 106551, and there were a number of parts of this ISO. Now, these are required in the manufacture and control of ventilators. However, let me tell you one thing. Now, I'll go back to the rules. Whether you're actually going in for these items of COVID which are regularly used or any other item, the overriding ISO is ISO 13485, which is the mother ISO. But once you set up your plant, it has to comply with ISO 13485, which is actually has been replicated in the rules as quality management system. Now you have to comply with that quality management system and then go to these individual item standards to qualify them. Okay. Now I'll give you a link in the ISO. Now you are lucky because ISO has allowed common people to download some standards which are related to COVID. Because ISO standards, as you know, they're all price standards. They are not free of cost. However, at a goodwill gesture, ISO has allowed certain standards to be downloaded at this point of time free of cost. The website is iso.org/COVID-19. iso.org/COVID-19. Now, if you go to this website, you will find all the ISO standards that you'd like to download, along with their relevant portions that are there. You download them, and you're in the lucky time now, because if you download it now, maybe after 2 months they'll block it and you have to buy it from the outside. So you go there and buy it. Okay. Now, I think so. It's 3:40. We have about 20 minutes. Now, should I take some questions that were sent by you online, or do you need me to keep on talking? Because it's a one-way street at the moment. So, I do the questioning, I do the answering, I do everything. Very boring, actually. Okay. Now, I received around 138 questions from you all. Some of the questions are very interesting. Some of the questions are repeats. Some of the questions are not related to actually this particular topic, and some of the questions require a calibrated answer which cannot be given at this point of time, because those questions are based on personal requirements which of course can't be given over here. So shall we start? The first question is not clear, of course. I want to do trial on effect of steam inhalation. Does it come under the new device as it is not a drug? No. Your question is not very clear. You want to do a trial on effect of steam inhalation. Effect. No, that's treatment. That's not a medical device requirement. However, if you have developed an equipment for steam inhalation, which you want to try out, you can do that. But you don't need a permission for that. Okay. IVD performance evaluation report, new drugs and rules, applicability IVD performance evaluation. Okay. Applicability IVD performance evaluation in the new drugs and clinical trial rules. Clinical trial rules, new drugs and clinical. Yes, it is applicable very much, because new drugs and clinical trials are based on Schedule Y. So you have to actually go to Schedule Y of the drug and cosmetic rules and read that in juxtaposition with the details mentioned in the medical device rules. Medical device rule, you have to read that and go to that portion of the rules in the act portion and then put them two together and come to a conclusion. How is the device regulation different from the existing guidelines? GCP, not much difference. Which regulations are followed for clinical trial conducted late prior to existing new regulations for devices? The old one was practiced. Which regulations are followed for CT? Clinical trial. I mean, see, you don't do clinical trial on medical devices, you do clinical evaluation. So I'll read your question as which regulations are followed for clinical evaluation till date prior to existing new regulations for devices. The answer is the old one. And that's of course a big problem for everybody when you do a device clinical trial as per drug rules. Okay. What are the new regulations for testing COVID-19? This is not as the this is not in today's presentation. There's how at present how many regulated medical devices are there in India? I should say around. You go to the rules, they'll tell you, but offhand I'll say around, it was 15 earlier, then about around 30-35 were added, but with the caveat that some of them like CT machine and MRI machine, they will be implemented and controlled at a later date, say next year. So you will get it. Now, if you go to the CDSCO website, there's a section on medical devices, and in that, uh, in that, in the chat box, sorry, in that medical device, in the CDSCO website, you will find that there's a section called notifications, guidelines, and all the stuff. If you click on that, you will find huge lot of data on guidelines and notification on medical devices. Click on those, read those, copy them down. It will make your life very, very easy. You don't have to run from pillar to post to get questions answered. So I'll take a question or two more and then we'll open the chat box. There's something, there's one question on innovative software. Now, softwares are medical devices but not controlled at the moment. So I think I have covered most of your questions actually. So you need elaborate answers to this. What we'll do is, I got your questions. I'll ask CDSA to actually prepare a question answer session on this one and publish it on their website so that you can get it from them. Okay. Now I think we can open up the chat box to get some online questions straight away. Uh, let's see. Mm, okay. Now the chat box is open and you can ask questions if you wish to. Dear sir, if there is a predicate device in the US, Europe, does this new device need clinical evaluation? Can we prove clinical evaluation? Yes, you have to do clinical evaluation, but abridged. You can give given a shortcut to it because this device is actually, if it is used in the USA, then the same type of device, if you make in India, you have to do a comparison study with that device, and if it matches, you'll get it. You can prove clinically. Yes, you can. Good evening, Anjali. Where are the questions? Please keep it coming. Feedback link will be given to you by CDSCA. I'm sure CDSA will give you the feedback link, and this will be recorded and kept with us, and we shall share everything that we are talking with you later on. Now if you don't answer me or give me questions, Delhi is a hot city. I'll fall asleep and go to sleep. Okay. Role of RT-PCR in detection of COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 tests. There are three type of tests. RT-PCR is one of them. Now, requirement of RT-PCR test in COVID-19 is decided by the government, by the experts sitting over there. I can't tell you the role of RT-PCR in testing. I mean, you have a role for, say, antibody testing, you have role for viral load testing, you have load for all those different type of testing. Wherever each is required, you have to do that. Uh, Trace matrix template, can you explain that to me? What would you require, Girisha? Device classifications and clean standards are not yet released by CDSCO for all devices. When we no, see, device classification and clean room standards are not released by CDSCO for all. It is more or less released for all devices. It is released for all devices. If I can show you over here, there's a section which actually says uh, what is the type of environment they require for each type of medical device. It is there, very much there, and you can also classify a device by going to the classification section and deciding yourself where your device is falling. It can fall anywhere you want to, but go slow in the questions, please, because if you actually do it yourself, you will be more confident. Now, if you classify a device as a class B device, once you apply, the government it has the right to reclassify it into A or C again. Okay. Now, if you go so fast, I'll be missing the question actually. Okay. I can't answer your question, Pradeep Ganguly. That's the government's decision. Can you share the future of medical dev? Future of any regulation is bright, Santosh. It's always bright. A medical device regulation in India has been published so that medical devices are controlled in a proper manner. And as we go along, I'm sure our device regulations will be as elaborate as FDA's. What class will an external breast prosthesis come under? In India, it is not a medical device, so maybe A or B. A possibly, because it does not. It's a very safe device. Design control. Okay, you have a design control section in the uh, where is it gone? Design control section is there in the quality management system requirement, and also the application submission portion of the rules. You can go there. You will find design control. What you have to give in the design control, what you have to do, and all this are there. So does IVD kits analytical comparison human feasible require ethics committee approval? Uh, yes, at a later Rahul, you require it at a later date, not immediately, but you require it before you actually go in for a permission. For clinical evaluation of in local setting, is the same IRB review or some specialized one? Same, same. Now, one thing I'd like to tell you over here is that local manufacturing and standards and international manufacturing and standards, when you come to India, it becomes the same actually. So there's the difference. Satya Vardarajan, your pathway is a normal pathway required for a IBD, so there is nothing specialized in that. You have to apply in the website with all the data. They'll examine that and then ask you questions and then get back to you, and you have to answer. And of course, your when they examine the data, there'll be experts from ICMR and everywhere, and they'll also go through it and then they'll give their views. So this is nothing special for COVID-19. But yes, COVID-19 at the moment, COVID-19 has been given a special treatment for quicker evaluation and quicker approvals. I have always a dilemma whom to approach first, ethics committee versus CDSCO. Well, this is the dilemma which is always there. Uh, See, if you go to ethics committee, you form the ethics committee first and you have the ethics committee, then go to CDSCO and tell them that this is it. Now, CDSCO, ethics committee may say, where is the CDSCO permission? They always say that. Okay. Now, after you go to the ethics, tell them that once I give your names to the CDSCO, they'll approve it. So, it can be either way. If you go to CDSCO, they'll say ethics committee, bring it. You have to explain to them the situation. This is a dilemma which is faced by everybody, but it's solved. It's not an unsolvable problem. Good afternoon, Manisha. What is the aspect? AI software. Now, I'm not an AI software specialist, nor I can give you specific details of any particular item. Now, ethics committee's job is to actually see that the trials are carried out in an ethical manner and the subjects are not harmed, they are treated properly, and in case of any problem, they are taken care of. So, ethics committee, I don't know, AI software, how will they look into it? AI software, is that a software is actually something, software, if I say that that software has to be linked to something which is again linked to a patient. So, I suppose that particular equipment which is with the patient is controlled by the software. So ethics committee will look into that and how that affects the patient. If a detection device is certified through self-certification, is there any uh, what is a detection device? I mean, you have to elaborate what detection device you're talking about. Even a IVD is a detection device. but then IVD C is certified through self-certification is not applicable in India for Indian manufacturers because you have got notified bodies to carry them out, and as per rules you have to be certified by the notified bodies. Substantial equivalence, substantial equivalence means that that particular device actually works in the manner in which two devices work in the same manner. They have got a huge number of similarities in it. There is not much a design change in them. They are then substantially equivalent. So you have to prove that your particular device is very much akin to another device in the market. Then it becomes a predicate. Otherwise, it's not a predicate device. Does predicate device other than notified predicate device other than the notified category need to be analytically validated? Analytically validated. No, no. It's only notified devices we are talking about over here. And there is a section, I'll tell you very clearly in the rules in very recently been published, which says that you can even non-notified devices can be registered in CDSCO. But that's just a registration. Is there a regulation to sell refurbished devices? Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what comes into my mind. MRI machines are refurbished. Bigger machines, X-ray machines are refurbished, but devices which lose their, efficacy or effectiveness during use can be refurbished. Yeah, but if you say, can I use the refurbished orthopedic implants? No, you can't. Can you use cardiac stents by refurbishing? No, it's only instruments we can refurbish. Is a drug-eluting stent both a device and a drug? Now, this is a very, very interesting question Suresh has asked. I'll tell you very clearly in one paragraph. Drug and device combinations, okay, they are available. For instance, you have got cardiac stents which are actually drug coated, but your decision of a product that is drug or device depends very, very clearly on the principal action of that combination. If the principal action of the combination is the device portion, it's a device. If the principal action of that combination is the drug portion, then it's a drug. Very clear. Okay. So drug-eluting stent is a device, it's not a drug. Because even if the drug is not there, the stent will do its work of opening up the lumen of the artery, which the drug cannot do on its own. With the insulin device, yes, of course, Aparna, insulin device is uh, it's a controlled release device for insulin. Yes. Now we are just having 1 minute, so I'll just skip a few questions and take some. Uh, See, Anuradha, you said that as per new definition, 1st April 2020 onwards, all are now dysregulated, which means the device classification and clean room regulation are unregulated was not yet released. All devices are not regulated. Get that clear. Remember, all devices are not only notified devices which are there should be regulated. Which are not notified can be registered. You don't require to get a license for that. They can be registered. And As far as classification and clean room requirements are concerned, it's very easy. You can do it yourself. I mean, classification is very, very easy. Okay. Now, this is 4 o'clock, and I suppose I've been told to stop it now. It was a pleasure meeting you all, and I'm sure I'll be getting questions from you even in future through CDSA. I request CDSA to possibly relay those questions to me. I'll give those answers and you'll get those answers. I'm sorry I could not take all the questions. I wish I could. Thank you very much.